I hope I've enthused everyone about the wonderful dolls by Leo Moss that we're showing in our event in the catalog called Tears from Mina. But we have such a variety of playthings and dolls in this auction that I wanted to just give you a variety of the type of things we had. I had an email from a collector who had looked at the postings online, and she said, this is a great auction. There are so many different kinds of categories. So here's some of the things that we have. Starting over here, we have this wonderful black doll in this fabulous antique ethnic costume and jewelry, including the headdress, the coral jewelry, the silk apron, the underskirts, and she's absolutely wonderful. She's made by Gaultier, and she is from the 1875 period. This was very interesting because starting about mid-century, there began to be an interest in exotic dolls in the German and French doll-making countries. And this is an example of one that would have kind of aimed to please many of the travelers to Paris who are coming in from the Mideast or Africa areas, and were the wealthy travelers of their time, and the manufacturers or stores, luxury stores, were trying to present dolls that would appeal to them, and it was quite successful. The little fellow down here is one, frankly, he's just an absolute treasure. I have never seen this model before. It is the black porcelain and bisque combination doll with, notice his turban. It's not a cloth turban. This is part of his sculpting. It is actually an unglazed bisque turban, painted and designed with gilt accents. Absolutely wonderful. He has his original body, and he has this wonderful antique silk costume, including these heavily ornamented slippers. He's a very, very rare piece and wonderful. I thought this doll was quite appropriate to also show you because this doll was once owned by Harriet Beecher Stowe, and we know that from the early handwritten note that is attached to her. Now I want to talk to you about Provenance for a minute because Provenance ties into the whole Leo Moss story that we were just talking about before. The more details we can learn about the backgrounds of categories of dolls or of individual dolls just gives so much added luminosity and fascination and importance to these dolls to know about them. They're not just things. They carry a history. They carry a story with them. And when we can know this story, it is so, so important. So this is a note that's on here. Again, nothing to prove that this is absolutely original, except you can tell sort of by looking at it that it is. But Harriet Beecher Stowe's doll, given to her by her niece, who gave it to Adelaide Agnes Kaiser. And then it tells about the other dolls, other costumes that came with her. The thing that's so sad is we don't know anything more about it except that it did belong to Harriet Beecher Stowe. So whoever owns this now, maybe they can go back and study more about Harriet Beecher Stowe's early life and what she might have owned as playthings as a child. Wouldn't it be a fascinating historical research to find more about it? Here are some of the other clothes. Oh, she has a couple of award-winning blue ribbons here too, dating back to the 1980s, which does seem like yesterday to me, but to some people is a lifetime ago. And it has a provenance of other people who owned it and what they had said of it. And one of the collectors who owned it, her letter is in here, and she makes this tantalizing comment. She said, I don't know. She tells the various collectors who had owned it over the years, and she said, I don't know where Eleanor Green got it, but he came with the old oak tag label with the handwritten note. And then she wrote in another one, if only these dolls could speak to us and tell us their story. Well, it's our job to try to interpret what they are telling us. And they give clues, and we can follow them. And all of these little pieces, like this wonderful little, really worn mauve and ivory cotton, I forget what they call it, a shirtwaist or something, piece is mentioned on this note that belonged to her originally. So that's a great piece. Wonderful early wooden doll that came to us from a private owner who doesn't collect dolls herself, but her mother had owned This doll and one other wooden dollette is also in this event. And I like this one in particular because I'm just quite fascinated with her costume. Beautiful, beautiful fabrics that it was made from. And let me turn it around. Wonderful, stunning details of the costume. This one was evidently played with by the child because it's not as pristine as some of the wooden dolls you find. But again, even knowing that, wouldn't you love to know her history? A change of pace, skipping forward several hundred years, and this would be into the 1930s, were the dolls made by the Italian firm of Bergarella. Very distinctive faces. Once you see them, there's no question what they are. You know immediately what they are. Their bodies were very uniquely modeled too, and very, very wonderfully done. And then the firm also made these fabulous original costumes, much in the manner of the Lenci dolls that were being made at the same time period. I wanted to show you this little fellow, because again, those of you who want to track down, who are always on the search for something, can I find out more about this particular item? Here is this doll which is marked 111. Now, it's a question. It sounds like the Simon and Halbig doll, and likely is that was made in the same period as their doll marked IV and 1, and this is the 111. But other people have conjectured that it was actually the missing Cameron Reinhardt 111 model from their art character series that was made with both glass eyes and painted eyes. Now, it could almost be both because Simon and Halbig was the porcelain firm that made dolls under commission for Cameron Reinhardt. Again, lots of research to be done, lots of things to find out. The doll itself, extremely rare, you already know that. The doll itself, a fabulous presentation, a character, a serene, solemn-faced boy with just wonderful, wonderful quality. Being sold, by the way, from the original family owners in upstate New York. So a great mystery doll. And then this wonderful example of Mibs. And many collectors know Mibs, and they know Mibs for one of two ways. They know Mibs because it was made as a composition doll in America in the 1920s. And it was also made as a little tiny all bisque doll that was produced in Germany by the Hertwig company in a pink tinted bisque. Here is an example of Mibs in a way I have never seen it before. Mibs is a larger bisque model, sold as a shoulder plate with a cloth body and an entirely different kind of complexion and color of hair, the brown colored hair. A wonderful doll, and there's more information about it in our catalog, and then you will undoubtedly, if you're the lucky owner, or even if you're just interested in it, want to follow up more on the story of Mibs and the background of it. I wanted to show you some wonderful all-original dolls, and this is getting rarer and rarer to find. When you are able to, I don't care, hock the house, do what you have to, but get that doll and then keep it so it is beautifully preserved. If you don't feel you have a great climate to keep it in, remove the clothes, store them in acid-free paper, and keep them notated that they belong to a particular doll, because this is so significant to know how the dolls were originally presented. And I have three beautiful examples here. This is, on my right here, is a wonderful, the very classic, pretty, sweet-faced doll made by Jules Steiner, their figure A model. It was their most popular model made. But here, we take her from being a popular doll that is one of the more commonly found French dolls from the Golden Age, not to take anything away from it. To me, it's always a stunning doll. I love this doll. But when you put it in a costume like this, when you can find it this way, its value is doubled, its beauty is doubled. You see how it was originally presented by the manufacturer here in this extraordinary burgundy silk with the overlay lace. She has her original soft mohair wig, and I'm going to turn her around so you can see how the costume is fitted all the way around. You can see her hair is tumbling on all the way halfway down her waist. unfortunately covers the lace in the back, but I don't care. You've got beautiful wig and beautiful lace, so that's pretty great. And bringing her around. The very, very beautiful, beautiful face of the Steiner A. Next to her, we have two gorgeous Jumeau bébés from the same period, mid-1885 period, and they're both wearing their original costumes. The girl on my left has her really rich ebony black complexion. Now, I've noticed that when people, I know from questions people call when I have an item that's coming up for auction, and they'll call and they'll ask me about the complexion. It's almost like a criteria for collectors of black bisque dolls that the complexion be flawless. They don't want scratches because it really takes away from it. When it has this rich, deep color, and I sometimes think that photography and camera work can't really pick up how beautiful it is, but this one is extraordinary, and it's enhanced by those brown paperweight eyes. It really kind of contrasts it, and always, very typically, the coloring of the lips on the black bisque dolls is this wonderful coral shade, which is very, very beautiful. Now, moving on down, look at her costume, entirely original from the Jumeau factory. We'll turn it around so you can see the back and how it's made. When you notice these original costumes, always just keep noticing one thing. It's all about the fabric and it's all about the fit. Those two things are so crucial. In terms of fabric, it has to be just the right weight fabric. You couldn't use a heavy, heavy wool, for example. You don't want to use a very sheer silk because it wouldn't hold. But this is exactly the right shape, the right weight wool to use, and more importantly, the scale of the pattern is appropriate to the size of the doll. If this were a very big plaid, it would overwhelm her. So chosen very, very carefully. Beautiful, beautiful doll, and wearing even her original Jumeau signed shoes. And those of you who like signed shoes and are always looking to find them for your own dolls, please remember that in this auction we have about 5 lots of signed French shoes. Multiple shoes, pairs of shoes. Very, very choice to find. In this next group, we have another girl that is entirely original from Jumeau also. This is, if you're not able to tell from the photography, velvet. Very, very rare to find patterned velvet fabric like this. And again, in a perfect scale for the doll, and the completely original costume. Let me turn it around. So you can see how the cap is fitted in the back. It is designed to fit flat against the back of the head. Same material, has this lovely red silk bow that forms a crown over the top of her head and is edged with silk crepe de chine ruffle, which is quite wonderful. And she also has signed shoes. Many of the Paris luxury toy shops vied with each other to make presentations of pieces that would really attract children. So rather than just sell a doll or a little doll, they would want to sell a doll in a beautiful presentation. In this case, this light wood box covered with padded ivory silk and a tufted padded cushion on the top with ormolu trim, very, very luxurious. And you open it up to find this extraordinary wealth of a doll and her accoutrements. And there are some rare pieces in here that are just so extraordinary. The doll itself is by Kling. Kling was a German doll firm, but noted for having a Paris office during this time, during the mid-1880s, and undoubtedly had small items that were not available in Paris, would come from that factory and be put into the presentation made by the Paris archive. Places such as the Maison Giraud, Au Nom Bleu were very famous for this, as were the burgeoning Paris department stores like Au Bon Marché and Au Samaritain were very famous in making these presentations. I love this piece. It's attached, so I can't take it out to show you, but it's a little coronet with a little china or bisque doll coming out of it with little feathers. Has its own little all bisque doll. Just wonderful, wonderful accessories and costumes in there. And finally, in terms of the all originals, I wanted to show you this darling doll. I wrote a book once called In the Palm of the Hand, and it was about little dolls and their special pleasure for collectors. And the special pleasure is, imagine as a collector, yes, but imagine as a child, you could take this doll, and as a child, it was like Ginny dolls later, or Wendy dolls later by Alexander, and you can just hold it. It fits in the palm of your hand, and how endearing is that? That was so wonderful. This is one of the early period Jumeau bébés, and is very wonderful because of her. Look at that smile. It's just a little shy, I'm going to make it in this world kind of smile. She's absolutely wonderful, and wearing this original red flannel wool mariner costume with the matching hat. She is absolutely super. Which gives me occasion to point out to you that she's standing in the midst of some very rare furnishings, miniature works of art made in Vienna in the late 1880s. We have a large group of this in this auction. We have probably 100 pieces in this auction being sold in various groups. And here is the very rare red Vienna enamel furnishings, all having their wonderful courtly scenes in the French 18th century manner. I guess it could have been the Viennese 18th century manner too. Look at that wonderful bench, the artwork on that, including two very rare vases. So if you're a collector of this miniature Vienna furniture, you do want to make sure you pop in and look at our whole selection from here.